And welcome back to coverage here at U.S. Nationals. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Reed Duke, the team captain for the United States. Reed sitting here eagerly awaiting the result of the tournament to find out who he's going to be testing and playing with for the World Magic Cup a little bit later this year. In the meantime, Gerry with a nice answer for, I can't believe I'm saying this, Sacred Cat. He's got a magma spray.
Perfect answer to Sacred Cat.
Yeah.
I spoke to Gerry about 5 minutes ago. I said, oh, so you're going to get to be on the play for almost every round in the top 8. He's like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. You know, he was very excited about that. I think it is a pretty big deal in Standard, especially with this Teamer Energy deck, potential for starts like this, turn 3 Bristling Hydra on the play. That's a big deal.
No answer for it in sight here for the Obzon Tokens deck. Of course, the good news for Drew is that if his deck gets to do what it wants to do, I would assume that a Bristling Hydra is not that big of a deal. It does not have any form of evasion, and you can simply just either throw a bunch of creatures on it or just chump block it indefinitely. But right now, Drew's kind of miles away from doing that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it looks like he might play an Anointer Priest this turn, but that's not something you want to chump block with right away. We saw Gerry defeat, it was an Esper Tokens deck. Drew Wraith's playing Abzan Tokens, but Tokens deck nonetheless in his sort of winning in round 11. So here Gerry deploying some energy creatures pre-combat to bolster his Bristling Hydra potential.
Reed, chat wants to know which deck is favored in this matchup. It's a relatively new matchup.
The Abzan Tokens deck is favored in Game 1, and it can change after sideboard depending on the teamer player's sideboard. Gerry doesn't have a super dedicated sideboard for the matchup, but he does have one Appetite for the Unnatural and Lifecrafter's Bestiary, which we 2 copies of that, which we saw him use to win the matchup just an hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'd rather be on the Abzan Token side of this matchup, but Gerry, of course, an excellent player, gets to be on the play. He's got a good start here. It's anybody's match.
Okay. Good and close, as they say. Drew, wow, just has nothing for the turn. He's got to have something. Because right now, Gerry is way ahead here. He's got 9 power on board, and Drew's already down to 15 with just an Anointer Priest on defense. An Anointer Priest is going to jump in front of one of these servants. And Gerry's like, you're going to take 7? Cool by me, man. Take 7. Looks like Drew's going to go for a cast out here. And just force Gerry to burn up 3 energy, but this is a transaction that I'm assuming Gerry's thrilled to make. It does hint that Drew may have another answer, though, for the Bristling Hydra here, does it not?
It does.
It does, and it did. All right, so cast out's going to take out the Hydra. And that does stem the bleeding significantly here from Drew's perspective. He's only going to take 2 a turn now.
Yeah, and we see Gerry a little bit light on follow-up action. One of his cards in hand is Essence Scatter, which is woefully unimpactful in this matchup.
It's a pretty good play, though. Anything with power and toughness at this point looks pretty decent.
Yeah, we're getting close to lethal for Drew Bates. If he can only deploy 1 removal spell at a time, it's going to be tough for him to survive the next 2 turns of these servants attacking. Treasure map.
Oh, I was like, what is he playing here? It's a treasure map. Okay. You know what else he drew for the turn here? Start to finish.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's a good draw for him. That's going to pad his life total on a number of different ways here.
Perfect with the Anointer Priest.
Exactly. Now, if Gerry cannot use that Essence Scatter to counter this, even though these are creatures, so it gets around that nicely as well. Also, we should point out here, Reed, Drew's got Anointed Procession in his hand. Okay. Doesn't look super great here yet. He also has Vraska.
That would be pretty good. Very high loyalty Planeswalker on a pretty stable board. It's exactly what Gerry doesn't want to see. Okay. Gerry able to keep the pressure on with Bristling Hydra. Notably gets up to 6 energy, so he doesn't have to worry about finish taking care of that one.
Was there a land off the top? An untapped land for Drew would let him play Vraska here. Though I don't think he drew one. No, he didn't. Was that Rishkar?
I can't tell what his
Maybe it was
alternate art card is.
Does he play Vraska's Contempt? What was that? Some F&M promo something or box
Fatal Push. It's certainly
Fatal
a black
Push?
card,
Okay,
right?
Fatal Push. Yeah, chat says Fatal Push. No, they also say Hub. If it was Hub, I think he just would have slammed.
No, he doesn't have Ether Hub. It's a non-energy deck.
Yeah, of course. So it's Fatal Push. And once again, Drew seems content to just chew through the energy reserves here of Gerry Thompson, just trading cards for energy. Not normally a successful plan.
Yeah, that's strange play. If it was Fatal Push, you'd think he'd point that in response to the Bristling Hydra trigger. I guess maybe he's intending to block. Maybe he's just dead.
Yeah, that might have been a mistake there from Drew. And actually, the game just ended, but that's a bit of a beating, isn't it?
Yeah, it turns out he was not going to be able to beat a Braid for his blocker anyway that he chose to deploy his cards. I guess maybe if he hadn't sacrificed a token, he could have found or had an extra chance of blocking the Hydra, but...
Yeah, that one did not end well for Drew there, but it did end well for Gerry Thompson, so he finds himself up a game. A little bit awkward at the end there, but Seth Manfield versus Benjamin Rinauto. Let's take a look at what they've got going on. Looks like they've both got some pretty well built out boards. Also, an aggressive deck. Hey, look at that. It's Mardu Vehicles.
Yeah, this is a relatively even matchup. This matchup has been around for much longer than Ixalan Standard has.
Yeah, going all the way back to Pro Tour Kaladesh.
That's right. Teamer Energy versus all of the various forms of Mardu vehicles that have existed. The one that exists today is more aggressive, with Bomat Courier, often Hazaret the Fervent. Three copies of Hazaret for Ben Renato. And the hallmark of Seth Manfield's take on Teamer Energy, main deck Carnage Tyrant, really trying to punish those blue-black control players.
Yeah, he did not find that matchup here, though.
Does seem that Whirler Virtuoso has done a great job for Seth stabilizing the board against a host of 1 and 2 toughness creatures. Seth at a high life total, 2 Thopters that were able to attack, and 7 energy still in the bank.
Benjamin have himself he's got Hazaret the Fervent, though. See at least a couple of cards in hand there for Ben, so he's going to have to sit still for a bit.
Please report to gathering point A.
So despite having Toolcraft Exemplar, Ben Renato's take on Mardu vehicles is very red-centric. He actually has no copies of basic planes. Instead, 5 mountains to help support his Inventor's Apprentices, his Bomat Couriers.
No attacks here from Ben. He's just going to pass the turn back to Seth. Who has an Attune with Ether.
Getting him up to a nice multiple of 3 energy. Seth set the die to 6, but I think both players know it's supposed to be 9.
Yeah. He just put the 6 upside down. Ignored the little dot there. We should get that adjusted, just for clarity's sake. This die does go all the way to 12.
So Ben has missed his chance for a quick, aggressive rush down type of win. And now what he has to do is settle into a slower Hazaret board stall type of game where he can, potentially use Hazaret's 3-mana ability to attack Seth's life total directly. But, even better than that would be if he can start attacking with Hazaret and forcing chump blocks from Thopters. He could eventually fight through Seth's board over the course of many turns. That is, if Seth doesn't have much in hand or doesn't assemble a way to actually neutralize the Hazaret, like putting 3 counters on Bristling Hydra. Wow, really impressed with Benjamin Renato's demeanor here. His ability to stay calm and think out the whole turn before he starts acting. That's a sign of somebody that's cool under pressure and somebody who really knows Magic.
Let's see what conclusion he decided to come to here. Another copy of Bomat Courier. Still short black mana here, which means that he's reluctant to offer trades for his scavengers. Is he just going to cash in this Bomat Courier here?
Yeah, it seems that way. He's putting Seth to a little bit of a test here. Seth probably does not want to take a chunk of 5 damage from the Hazaret, but also doesn't have a very profitable block. Seth could block Hazaret with Bristling Hydra and put 3 counters on it, but then it's vulnerable to Unlicensed Disintegration, which actually you and I know is sitting in Benjamin Renato's hand, waiting for a black mana.
Right.
More likely, Seth will use the Hydra to eat one of the smaller creatures, let's say, for example, Toolcraft Exemplar, and potentially use energy to make Thopters for chump blocks on some of the other creatures. So, one base level block for Seth would be make a Thopter on Hazaret, Whirler Virtuoso on Bomat Courier, and Hydra on Toolcraft Exemplar, using 3 additional energy for a counter on the Hydra. But looks like both players have puzzled that out. That's not a bad result for Benjamin Renato. He gets to cut through some of Seth's energy. He gets to chip in for 3 damage, and the real loss is Toolcraft Exemplar and Bomat Courier, but the Bomat Courier he may have chosen to just cash in anyway.
So Seth is going to make a Thopter here.
But let's keep in mind, this is not a one-sided aggressor versus defender type of game of Magic here. Seth Manfield has a lot of power and toughness on the board. Those Scrap Heap Scroungers cannot block, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Seth navigate this combat step in a way where he can crack back for quite a lot of damage next turn.
Well, let's jump back over to our main match here, because this one's actually going a little slowly, and I do not want to miss much here on Drew Bates versus Gerry Thompson. The players finally finished getting ready. I wonder if one of them's mulliganed. Looks like Jerry's on 6 cards here.
Last time we watched Gerry play this matchup, he mulliganed to 6, but had a Lifecrafter's Bestiary, which very quickly undid that mulligan.
That's right, I remember that.
I also caught a glimpse that he has one of his best sideboard cards in hand, Appetite for the Unnatural. It is only a card that trades 1 for 1, but if he can find the right time and the right target for it, he can dismantle one of Drew Bates' most important threats.
Jerry's just verbalizing what he's doing here. He's going to play a second Rootbound Crag and go get himself a basic.
Likely an island.
Right. And Drew says, well, while you're in there, I'll go ahead and crack my second Evolving Wilds and go get a Plains. Okay, there's Hidden Stockpile for Bates. He does need something to kind of prime the pump here, though, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah, Hidden Stockpile on its own doesn't do much, but a few turns from now we might see it doing quite a lot of work, as it's really what this tokens deck needs to both start its stream of tokens flowing and also to scry towards more important pieces of the puzzle.
Whirler Virtuoso now for Thompson. Right on time, turn 3. And Drew's actually going to go ahead and cycle a cast out here. Perhaps looking for lands, which he found.
Looks like he's going to pass with start finish available. Or cast out.
Yeah, he does have both. He's going to go start finish here.
And potentially, I guess, going to block a Whirler and Scry. Though I'm not sure I love it. He could have made the same play on his own turn and effectively taken 2 extra damage but gotten a servo for his troubles.
You know how it is. You have an instant and you think, well, I'll just wait. Sometimes it's not correct.
That's right. Sometimes it's not.
So the old block and sack here for Drew. Doesn't like what he sees, puts that on the bottom. And what does Gerry have? Ooh, a Rogue Refiner. That card's done serious work. He draws an Attune with Ether, but he actually doesn't have his 4th land here. He'll have to wait till next turn. Uh-oh, there's an Anointer Priest read. That is one of the ways that Drew can keep his life total nice and lofty while he sets up his late game engine.
Yep, so this is the token deck starting with a jumble of jigsaw puzzle pieces and putting them together one at a time to amass the mid-late game combo that really buries the teamer deck. But Hidden Stockpile and Anointer Priests are 2 of the important pieces.
There's Fatal Push. And that's going to kill Whirler Virtuoso. Gerry down to 1 energy, so he doesn't want to use... He can't make any Thopters. Well, he's already got 2.
So if you'll recall, Gerry drew Attune with Ether off his Rogue Refiner last turn, picked up a basic forest for this turn, so he has a handful of options available to him. His focus should be on unloading some reliable damage. At this point in the game, that's starting to mean flying creatures. But alternatively, he could use his Appetite for the Unnatural, potentially on the Hidden Stockpile. He could pass with Open Mana. One unique thing about Gerry Thompson's sideboard, no negates. That's a card that many teamer players just play the full 4 of, but instead, Gerry really prioritizing mana efficiency in Spell Pierce.
Wow. We saw that with a complete blowout, actually against Obzon tokens, or maybe it was Esper tokens, but against a tokens deck earlier today.
Yep. Yeah, Spell Pierce, very powerful card when your opponent is leaning heavily on Fumigate.
And you mentioned that critical sideboard card here for Gerry, Appetite for the Unnatural.
Now, I wouldn't have minded Gerry trying to do this on Drew's turn. One way that the game could have played out is that Drew would sacrifice one of his own permanents voluntarily, thinking that he'd get it back at the end of the turn. And then if Gerry, before Drew's end step, killed the Hidden Stockpile, he could sort of get him. The cost, of course, is allowing Drew to scry.
Gerry's going to trade off Rogue Refiner, and after a double block, the Anointer Priest is going to hit the bin. And that reduces the board to 2 Thopters versus 1 Servo. It's like we're back on Kaladesh again.
And you can see Drew without that Hidden Stockpile has, not much going on, and he's sort of at the mercy of the top of his library. He passed with cast out mana available, perhaps wanting to be ready for a Glory Bringer, rather than using
Anointer Priest.
I suppose it would be Anointer Priest start finish. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but he does have a couple goodies in his graveyard right now.
He's kind of telegraphing it to Thompson. Gerry's just gonna play a servant of the conduit.
Drew searches for Basic Forest, that unlocking Vraska as a powerful top deck. He drew Essence Extraction. Which I'm actually a little curious to board that in against Teamer.
Drew now goes for Anointer Priest. And Gerry says, okay.
So this would be a great turn for Gerry to slam Glorybringer. If he has one. He
Uh-oh,
does.
that's 5 mana. Boom. Glorybringer hits the battlefield.
Masterful, Marshall, that Gerry would not cast the Glorybringer into open mana, but wait until Drew Bates taps low enough that he can't have cast out, get the guaranteed value out of Glorybringer. Perfect.
Oh, yeah, Gerry, very clever, and he's going to get paid off for it here. Getting a chance to take down a creature on the other side, and then now forcing Drew to, doesn't have to do it this turn. He can wait a turn if he'd like, but he's going to need to take care of Glorybringer over the course of the next 2 turns, one way or the other. And, of course, he's woefully behind in this race now.
So here's Hidden Stockpile. He's going to get a free scry, replace the token at the end of the turn.
Like you do. And then he's just going to go ahead and use Cast Out to take down Glorybringer right now.
Good sequencing there by Drew. I like that he scryed first and then decided to play Cast Out while Gerry was tapped out to make sure he wasn't vulnerable to Spell Pierce or Supreme Will. That play makes a lot of sense if he decided to scry potentially a card that's not vulnerable to Spell Pierce to the top of his library. Gerry, I think, has another Glorybringer, so potentially thinking about whether or not he would like to exert and kill the servo. He has the potential to stop the stream of tokens from Hidden Stockpile. Also turning off Start Finish. Pretty important here. Oh, but he decides not to exert.
Interesting. Is it a clock difference?
Well, it is, but the Glorybringer is now just going to bite the dust due to Start Finish in Drew's graveyard.
Yep. Where he could have forced Drew to play something, get a creature down, and then play Finish. Now he just has a servo.
And Drew did scry something to the top that is not vulnerable to Negate or Spell Pierce. It's Angel of Sanctions.
Really? Are the 2 best rares? Is Kaladesh going to go at it here?
It looks like it.
Whoa, Angel of Sanctions. Eating a Glorybringer. And it looks like he triggered the Hidden Stockpile as well. So, pass the turn back to Gerry. Looking to seal this thing up. He's up a game here in the quarterfinals. He needs to make it to the finals. Any of these players do. To get on the U.S. national team. Of course, you'd have one more match to go, decide if you're the national champion for the United States for that year. But getting on the national team is a big step.
So Longtusk Cub threatening to become a 5/5. Almost demanding a block, and Gerry willing to throw away one of those Thopters for extra damage. Is Drew going to block? Surely he should block.
Is there any 3 damage spells that he may be worried about here?
In game 1, it would be a Braid, but I would be very surprised if Gerry was to leave in a Braid. And Drew did not sacrifice his creature to scry. Potentially he had already scried to the top last turn.
see what he drew.
So Drew kind of in big trouble in that his hidden stockpile doesn't have any food left.
Was it a fumigate on top?
He drew Fumigate, which
Awkward.
hoisted on his own petard here with Angel of Sanctions, hiding the Glorybringer, protecting the Glorybringer from Fumigate.
So he goes fumigate, gain 4, go, take 4
That's great.
from Glorybringer. And then has to have something on top of his library to help get him out of it again? Like,
Well, he could then rebuy the Angel of Sanctions. But this is this works out well, actually. He sacrificed the Angel of Sanctions to Hidden Stockpile, which puts Glorybringer back into play. Now Fumigate just cleanly picks off everything, except...
oh, Supreme Will from Gerry Thompson, and that's just going to be game, right?
Yeah, the
4.
Glorybringer will exert to kill that token. All the ground creatures will get in, and Gerry Thompson's going to
Gerry's
advance.
going to get into the semifinals here. Boom, kill that. And great run, Drew Bates, but it does end here. You've run into Gerry Thompson with Teamer Energy. He's into the semis. Now, I'll remind you guys at home, he's got to make it to the finals to get on the team. One step away from for Gerry Thompson to make it on the team with you, Reed. Exciting stuff. Let's take a look at Seth Manfield versus Benjamin Renato over here.
Wow, they're still in game one.
What is going on?
And Benjamin Renato still has 4 lands in play, the same 4 lands he had when we checked in an hour ago.
He must have been chucking them to Hazret or something.
I
right?
guess so, but he's still missing black mana as well.
You're right. And he's probably got a couple of scrap heap scroungers in the graveyard, too.
Seth Manfield down to 4, so he has to find a way to win the game before 2 more activations of Hazret. Wow. Seth was at 17 when we left this game. It's the power of Hazret. I mean, it's really a one-woman show in some of these games.
Mm-hmm. She's just single-handedly holding the ground game. But the sky is falling here as well. Seth Manfield with 3 Thopters. He's only attacking with 1, respecting his own life total. He's down to 4. Make it 2. And this should do it. And Benjamin just chucks every card in his hand at Seth Manfield's head via Hazret the Fervent. And that is game 1 going to Benjamin Renato.
Unbelievable.
And, yeah, we're going to eventually move our way to game 2 here, though that first game did take its time, didn't it, Reed?
Yeah, it really did. That was impressive to see the aggressive deck win in such a late stage of the game against the more powerful teamer deck. But the teamer colors, they really, really struggle to answer Hazret the Fervent, and Hazret on a stalled board like that is just unbelievable. I mean, that's not even to mention the fact that she stalls the board herself. The ground creatures can't attack through her.
That's exactly what happened there. So Stephen Neal versus Oliver Tomajko. Oh, all tied at a game apiece. Blue-black control versus the Teamer Energy deck. Stephen wants to cast himself a second copy of Servant of the Conduit. Oliver is going to cycle.
Looks like we're on Steven's 4th turn on the draw here. He does not have a land drop. Oliver going to crack the Evolving Wilds, end of turn.
Land here for Tomajko. Not a lot going on. Just a couple of 2-2s for Steven.
A good draw from Steven. He's going to play Rogue Refiner, possibly with Negate backup if Oliver tries to counter.
I've seen the blue-black players be pretty proactive about countering cards like Rogue Refiner.
Yeah, I think Oliver should counter it.
And I wouldn't be shocked to see Steven protect it if he can. Yes, he has the negate.
So down to 1, up to 3 energy, picks up a card.
And passes the turn back. So now he has a nice little board state, 7 power.
But an open window for Oliver. What can he do with this turn of reprieve? Nothing.
As of yet, nothing, but you know how it goes, Reed. He's got 5 mana. I see 1 Torrential Gearhulk in hand.
He had a Scarab God that he elected not to play.
I'm surprised, but I believe he has Vraska's Contempt in hand. And he has found a target for it. So he's going to take 3, drop down to 13. Excuse me, he only gains 2 back, right?
Gain 2, take 5, so
Yes.
minus 3.
So it was actually 3, all right. Look how smart I am, Reed. Aren't you lucky?
Very good, Marshall.
Yeah, thank you. Torrential Gearhulk now looks like the lined up play here for Tomajko. And, you know, I got to say, looking at this board state, not bad. I mean, running your board into a Torrential Gearhulk with Vraska's Contempt already in the yard is a bit of a disaster here for Steven if he doesn't have an answer.
Oh, geez, but Steven Neal does have a nice anti-creature hand here.
What does he
has
have?
Confiscation Coup and Negate, so cannot stop the Gearhulk from coming into play, but he can take his pick of either negating the spell that it targets or stealing it with Confiscation Coup after the fact.
Does he have a land?
I think he has a mountain.
Okay.
There we go.
He's just going to do nothing, and Tomajko did nothing either. He just took 7 on the chin.
Patience is a good thing with these blue-black control decks, but hard to know when you're being too patient.
It looks like Oliver's playing for the longer game here. He's going to draw a couple of cards with Hieroglyphic Illumination, assuming that he can find answers to all the creatures on the battlefield here.
I really like that Steven did not negate that in anticipating perhaps a fight over Confiscation Coup a turn or 2 down the road.
We'll make sure to get that life total updated. I think he took 7 and is down 6. All right, yeah, we're just having a little issue with that, but we'll get it sorted out shortly. But I do believe...
Okay, careful,
Oliver's at
Steven.
6.
Steven, you should tap a Servant of the Conduit for your second blue mana here.
Because he's just burning energy?
Oh, no, this is going to be a disaster because he's going to be out of energy and unable to take the Scarab God.
Oh, no!
Yeah, he needed to, if he anticipated having to use Negate there, he needed to not use Ether Hub for blue mana. He should have tapped a Servant of the Conduit for a second blue mana and left up Servant and 1 land to cast Negate. Then he would have had exactly enough.
Oh, what a disaster for Steven Neal. He was going to be able to steal the Scarab God.
Yeah.
Now he used the negate on a sorcery just to protect a sorcery that says you gain 4 energy? Oh, no.
You never know. You never know, Marshall, when 1 energy here or there can determine the outcome of a game with this deck.
Right, that careful tapping. Oh, what a blowout. Devastating for Steven. How can he come back from this, Reed?
He probably needs to draw another Confiscation Coup where he'll see he's not going to beat the Scarab God.
Okay, because the Scarab God is now lined up to start buying back creatures and dominating this board.
Now,
And there's not that many answers for it out of Steven's deck.
we just saw the life totals get updated, and Oliver is at a fairly tenuous 6 life, so I suppose an unanswered Glorybringer could still win the game, but it's
Okay.
going to have to come pretty quickly because the Scarab God does not give you a lot of time.
There's a Rogue Refiner. Oliver Tomajko doing his best to capitalize on this situation here. He's going to use Fatal Push to take down a Servant of the Conduit. But look at his board state now. All of a sudden, he's got 14 power at the ready here.
Yeah, and he just scribed at the top and drew disallow. So as long as Oliver does not make a misstep in this game, he should win over the course of the next turn or two.
He's going to get in for 4
That
here.
is not a trade. That's just a chump
No,
block.
he chump blocked and actually ended up taking an extra point of damage here as a result. Well, it's a 4-4. Steven's having a bit of a rough go here. And he's just going to pack him in. A rough ending for Steven Neal there. We've all been there before. You know, you make a mistake, an oversight there, and then sometimes you just get a little bit flustered. But the truth is that he was way, way behind after that mistake anyway. It was going to be incredibly difficult for him to come back. But on the bright side, there was a benefactor there. That's Oliver Tomajko, who moves on to the semifinals and is now 1 match away. Just 1 match of magic to see if he is going to make it onto the World Magic Cup team for the United States. Only 3 slots on that team, and as we came into the tournament, only 2 available because Reed, sitting right next to me, has one of those slots. And boy, you know, we had some ranging answers, but clearly a big deal for each of these players to get that seat.
These guys were sideboarding for a long time. I wonder if there was some kind of deck check involved.
Maybe they arm wrestled in between.
Yeah. Bathroom break, I guess, could have happened.
Yeah, I like my idea better, but yours is admittedly more likely. Okay, good start here for Benjamin Renato. He won the first game.
That's just what he wants. I mean, he would love it if it was on the play, but he did manage to win game number 1 on the draw.
Does he have the Heart of Kieran?
Looks like he has at least a Bomat Courier to allow the...
Okay.
Oh, he does have Heart of Kieran. This is just a fantastic hand from him as long as he can find a 3rd land on time.
There we go, Benjamin. We like to use those 12-sided die just to differentiate them, and often, you know, we exceed 6 on energy. It makes it easier to read, of course, for you at home. Now, no trade.
Oh, wow. So
That's interesting.
normally you would think that Renato would love the chance to trade against the Servant of the Conduit, 1 mana creature for 2 mana creature, but the reason you see him not doing that is probably because he wants to be very, very sure he has a creature to crew Heart of Kieran next turn. And wow, Marshall, something pretty unbelievable at Seth Manfield's deck. Only 1 Abrade in the 75, and it's in the sideboard. So that's Abrade, of course, one of the flexible slots in Teamer, but his omission of that card is going to leave him very vulnerable for this sort of niche matchup here in Mardu Vehicles.
You know, it's crazy because Seth, and I think most people, you know, don't really think of Mardu Vehicles in Standard at the moment. It's a deck you'll see occasionally, but it's not a big player. Abrade, a big part of the reason why we don't see Mardu Vehicles anymore, but you know, it's kind of like one of those things you'll see this cycle pretty often in Standard where if people sleep on it a little too much and start shaving the Abrades and cutting down on the cheap removal spells, all of a sudden it can come back, snipe a tournament, and then just run away again.
And if Ben Renato has his way, people will have Mardu Vehicles on their mind once again after this tournament's done. Our partner in crime, Jake Van Loonen, big fan of Mardu Vehicles. He told me that would be a deck he would have worked on for this tournament if he had been competing.
So Seth is going to attack with Bristling Hydra here.
So
These are
as
big
good
hits.
as good as Ben Renato's start has been, he is missing land drops. So Seth Manfield definitely going to smell blood and see that his way potentially to beat this Heart of Kieran is just bashing, just trying to bloody up Ben Renato and try to make him be the one playing defense. That's one way to make your ground creatures beat a flying threat. It's just to race. Ben did find his third land. Now has access to a Spire of Industry and an Ether Hub. So while the colored mana situation isn't perfect for him, he can pay either life or his 1 energy to make second colored mana when he needs it. Oh, and now that Ether Hub is going to be a very reliable land once he can bolster things with the Harvester. Also going to make it difficult for Seth to race on the ground.
Hydra's getting in again here, it looks like, Reed.
It's the only creature that can attack into the potential of Bomat Courier crewing Aethersphere Harvester. Oh, and that's a big card for Seth. He needed some way to interact with these flying creatures. I think he's looking for a 13 on a 12-sided die.
You're going to have to twist that one for a while.
There we go.
Still, that's huge, right?
Yeah, it's huge. Now, they are only 1/1 Thopters, so the bigger vehicles can fight through them in the air, but this buys a lot of time for Seth, whereas he was going to be dead in 2 turns if he didn't have anything like a Whirler Virtuoso. Ooh.
Is that a Rampaging Ferocidon there?
Yeah, it sure is. So Seth's going to have to make some tokens in response.
He will be taking a damage per token there once the Rampaging Ferocidon's on the battlefield, so it's kind of now or never time here for Manfield.
Seth likely deciding if he should make 3 or 4. How valuable is the Bristling Hydra, and how badly does he want to protect it with the hexproof ability?
Yeah, it is tempting, especially when Benjamin's playing Mardu vehicles and can have unlicensed disintegration, which is, you know, if he gets to blow up a Bristling Hydra with unlicensed disintegration, he's going to be pretty happy with that. But he's going to go for the right now, Seth recognizing that this doesn't get a whole lot better for him.
But now, the other thing about Rampaging Ferocidon is it shuts off the lifelink of Aethersphere Harvester, so whereas Ben Renato was in a pretty good racing situation a moment ago, he now has to really, really worry about getting attacked back by all of Seth's ground creatures. And he's electing to attack with the Harvester instead of the Heart of Kirin. The reason you would do that is if you don't want your opponent to be able to trade all 4 Thopters, but I think... Oh, no.
No life gain. He can't gain life.
Not that it's a huge disaster. I mean, 1 energy, but, you know, we've seen what 1 energy can do. To
Yeah, I'm assuming the players know that. I saw him activate it and then write. It looks like they may have sorted it out, though. Did you get that vibe?
Yes.
We can double check with our person to make sure that Benjamin didn't gain any life there.
But I think if Ben had been on the ball, if that had been on his radar, that the Ferocidon was going to shut off lifelink, he probably would have attacked with Heart of Kirin instead.
Yeah, I think that when you were saying that, I'm like, does he not know? Because Kirin looked like a more likely attack otherwise. Seth is going to cycle a Sheltered Thicket here. He's got a heck of a board. So how much damage can Seth get in from this point? Right now, the only blockers back are 2, right? Benjamin has 2 blockers, a Rampaging Ferocidon and a Courier, or if he wanted, he could have a Heart of Kirin and a Courier.
Yeah, so assuming Ben doesn't want to trade with the Hydra, that's 4 points getting through. He can block 2 of the of Rogue Refiner and Servant of the Conduit and take nearly 11 damage if Seth decides to attack with everything.
Wait, but Seth had an additional Thopter.
Yeah, but Ben could also chump block the Hydra. I'm
I see.
Calculating as if the Hydra is going to get through.
Well, let's assume. What if Seth did have an extra Thopter right here?
So if Ben was to block the 2 biggest creatures, the Hydra and the Rogue Refiner, it's going to be
2, 4,
You're
6,
right, it would
7,
be-
8, 9, 10, and then 2 from the Whirler Virtuoso is 12.
Yeah, it would be 4 2-power creatures getting through and 4 Thopters.
Whoops.
So it looks like maybe Ben had made his calculation based on
Yeah.
the lifelink of Aethersphere
Did
Harvester.
Seth as well, though?
And Seth probably just didn't think about this all-out attack. But yeah, it looks like it was, the game should have been mathematically decided if it had been 2 computers playing a moment ago, because Ben Renato did play his 3rd land for the turn. He didn't have a land drop coming up to follow up.
Wow. So an oversight begets another oversight, and we've still got Magic to play here.
Yeah, we do.
By the way, I'm really glad that we don't have to sit here and watch computers play Magic, because mistakes are going to happen, but they're part of the game.
Yep. We saw a number of turns like this at the World Championship, even, among the highest level players in the game, where sort of like both players will miss something. And
another thing that comes to mind here, by the way, is if Seth can just... There we go. Yeah, it looks like Benjamin actually wants to get rid of the Rampaging Ferocidon, potentially. Like, if Seth gets him low enough, Ben just can't play any more creatures, right? Like, his Ferocidon will just kill him.
right.
So I don't know if he's blocking a Virtuoso or trading for the Hydra. Yeah, he's going to trade it off. It actually became a liability for him there.
Huh.
Ooh, this is awkward.
Yeah, Seth could have played that pre-combat to make it more difficult for Ben to block the Hydra, or just in case he was going to lose the Whirler Virtuoso in combat.
Still, let's just zoom out here. There's a bunch of little weird stuff going on, but right now Seth is dominating this board, right? Like, he's got Benjamin down to 3 and looking good.
Yeah, the Whirler Virtuoso really changed the dynamic of the game, and a crucial turn where Ben Renato was not able to gain life off his Aethersphere Harvester that he was really counting on. He's just scooping them up.
All right.
Wow.
That was a strange ending to that game.
Yeah,
Reed.
not what I would have predicted a couple turns ago.
No, same. But let's take a deep breath. We get a game 3.
Yeah.
And that's good for us. You can see that the players are now going to take a look at their opponent's deck list and get in there.
Marshall, I have a list of cards that my rule is that every time they appear in a game of Magic, I have to read them again, no matter how many times I've played them. Some cards like Emrakul, the Eon's Torn,
Oh, yeah.
all these super complicated cards, and Rampaging Ferocidon is going to be added to my list. This is a card that just has so many abilities, and it's so easy to forget one crucial one and misjudge the game state because of it, that you really just have to refresh yourself every time. Okay, Menace. Have to block with 2 creatures. Okay, I take a point every time a creature enters the battlefield under my control. That includes tokens. That includes if I blink a creature, anything like that. Okay, players cannot gain life. That's a big one. That means lifelink. That means a spell that gains me life. That means a triggered ability that gains me life.
I have a question for you, Reed. I'm going to put you on the spot here because this is a strategic question that we've actually seen come up multiple times this weekend, including in this last game. How do you track when these things are no longer applicable? We saw a game yesterday where, a player had out Headstrong Brute and Pirates for the whole game. It was PvD. And then near the end of the game, he no longer had any Pirates, and therefore the Headstrong Brute had lost Menace. But it had Menace the entire time it was on the battlefield, and the opponent, I'm assuming, overlooked this and thought that they couldn't block on the last turn. Here, we saw Benjamin first forget about the Rampaging Ferocidon's second ability there when he went to attack and used up an energy where he didn't need to. But then also it was gone, and he still had the Aethersphere Harvester, and I don't know, maybe there was a block in there somewhere. It certainly wasn't looking good for him, but a 3/5 lifelinking blocker tends to change combat math pretty dramatically. Is it just as simple as snapshotting the board again? Like, it's hard to do that, right?
Excellent question, Marshall. I can offer you two techniques to help with this problem. The first is that you just want to periodically reset yourself in a game of Magic. I have a habit that I know, Hall of Famer Paulo Vitor Damarosa has been a big advocate of this technique in Magic, is that you start your turn, you untap, you draw your card, and you survey the board before you do anything. You don't play your land, you don't rush, you don't attack, you don't play a spell. You think about exactly what's going on in the game. You survey the whole board situation, then you decide what you're going to do with the turn all at once.
I see.
So just
and that can be a catch-all for some of those.
Yeah, exactly. Just resetting yourself mentally and getting ready to take everything one step at a time at the beginning of your own turn or the beginning of a complicated combat step. It's a really good technique. The other is just to notice in the moment of something happening all of the consequences of it. That means when you resolve combat damage and that Ferocity goes to the graveyard, that's when you say to yourself, okay, what are the consequences on the other aspects of the game that this creature has died? Because as you mentioned, it can be very, very difficult to just track all that information constantly in your head because there's so much changing and so much to hold in your mind during a game of Magic. So using either of those two techniques can help you not miss something.
Wow. Now I see why everybody's so excited to play with you on the World Magic Cup team, Reed. That's great stuff. And it looks like we're back underway here. Seth Manfield versus Benjamin Rinauto. Game number 3, 2-drop into 2-drop for both players. It's a harsh mentor over there for Benjamin.
Yeah, somewhat interesting creature choice. This is a card that we've seen pick up in popularity a little bit over the previous weeks, but more often in Ramanop Red than in Mardu Vehicles. In particular, it does not crew Heart of Kiran, which is something you really look for in a 2-drop for this deck.
Good timing, by the way, as he plays Heart of Kiran.
But but boy, how good would Harsh Mentor have been on the board state last game when the Whirler Virtuoso made 4 tokens?
Oh, would have been a game changer. Would have really prevented Seth from doing that. So you can see that Benjamin has used up all of his mana here from turns 2 and turn 3. And has a nice little board state going, thank you very much. But Seth could have access to up to 4 mana this turn and strike back quite strong.
We had 2 quite close games to start out this match. And let's keep in mind that this is the first one that Ben has been able to be on the play. And that's really where the Mardu deck can shine if it's able to have a good draw and assemble all 3 of its colors of mana. So Seth in his own right has an excellent draw here, turn 3 Bristling Hydra, but again, the ground blocker, not exactly what you want against Heart of Kiran.
This is a big turn here for Benjamin. You can see the veteran motorist there ready to crew up Heart of Kiran. That's going to be 5 damage just right off the top. 5 energy in the bank here, but it looks like the only attack here is that 5. Still, that's a big hit in the air, Reed, and Seth is going to have to do something about that killer combo of veteran motorist plus Heart of Kiran.
So I think we'll see Seth chip in with his own Bristling Hydra here, but really the priority is to find an answer to the flying creature. Harnessed Lightning is his best one, though he does have 1 copy of a Braid that would work also. But yeah, stabilizing his life total is a priority here and making sure the game gets to the point where he can cast his 4 and 5 mana spells.
Love this attack. Getting in with Bristling Hydra. This is one of the ways that you really... I mean, it's one of the strengths of Mardu Vehicles is that it kind of forces you into this interaction where you can't just sit there. I mean, Seth's looking at the board. He says, if I sit here in 3 turns, I'm dead. So I'm going to have to start turning creatures sideways here, even if it's not really comfortable. But he needs to do it. And he does get in. And we know Bristling Hydra, I think, can be responsible for one heck of a lot of damage in a very short period of time. Seth Manfield seems to have drawn a lot of Servants of the Conduits over the course of the last couple of games.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't know if that's good or bad. Like, it's a cheap spell that, you know, affects the board and gives you some defense. Like, it's part of the reason why Benjamin has only been able to attack with the Heart of Kieran thus far. But it's also one of his, you know, not as impactful spells here a little bit in the middle part of the game. He would have preferred a Rogue Refiner there or something like that, I think, to help keep things moving. Oh.
So that already takes Seth down to 12 life. Veteran Motorist crews the Heart of Kieran. He's coming in for 7 damage.
Oh, boy.
And
that's going to leave Seth dead to that Heart of Kieran.
And the Harsh Mentor on the battlefield means that Seth does not have his Get Out of Jail Free card in Whirler Virtuoso available to him. He's probably going to need... well, almost definitely he's going to need a burn spell if he wants to continue playing this game beyond next turn.
So, former world champion Seth Manfield way up against it against Benjamin Rinauto. Benjamin looking to advance to the semis, and he quietly reminds Seth these two are attacking you.
So Seth, I mean, as awful as it is, he's considering chump blocking a 2-3 with a 2-2 just to change the math of Heart of Kieran being lethal next turn. But he's really puzzling out, do I have a chance to win if I make that play? Am I committing myself to drawing a burn spell next turn anyway? I mean, we can count on Seth to really think this through and make the best decision, but it is a bad spot for him.
I could certainly see him chump blocking the Inventor's Apprentice here. Like you said, it's an entire turn. No, he's going to run with it. Oh, boy. Big draw step here for Seth Manfield.
Harness Lightning, a Braid, Confiscation Coup.
Was that a red card? Honestly, I could not see it, Reed. Seth, much like you, by the way, keeps their cards close to the vest and pretty upright. Did you know you did that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a big proponent of protecting your cards.
I think it's completely correct. It also drives me nuts because I want to see what you got. All right, there's a Rogue Refiner. No, that was not a burn spell. I think Seth is just going to die in the air here.
Seth also with 2 copies of Slice and Twain, though he is probably a mana short of casting that, even if he did find one.
Well, he could play a land. Have 2 servants. So I guess he could do it. He's looking for a way out. Mardu vehicles hit so hard. He took 5. Then he took 7. Combination with 3 more. He is in bad shape now.
Yeah. So hard for us to tell without knowing Seth's hand if he is just soldiering on despite being dead to the Heart of Kieran next turn, or if he actually is going to be able to burn it out of the air and is planning for the long run here.
Yeah, to Seth's credit, it is not. I can't figure out which one it is, though. If I had to guess right now, Reed, I think he might not have the answer. He's going to attack with both. Ben immediately goes to his life pad. Says, no problem. I'll take the 6. Now, if Seth had land Whirler Virtuoso, could he survive? he can still activate it. It
He
just
can,
hurts.
yeah. It costs him 2 life to do so. So, I mean, 1 chump block of Heart of Kieran.
Yeah, that gains him 3 in the process.
Ooh, Chandra's defeat
Chandra's
on
defeat.
Veteran Motorist, so he may be able to survive at 1 life if
That does work.
if Ben Renato does not have an interactive card here.
He doesn't need much, though, does he?
No, Veteran Motorist does it, Removal Spell does it, Haste Creature does it. Even a lowly Bomat Courier is lethal here. Well, I guess it would require Bomat Courier plus a way to crew Heart of Kieran.
Land go. All right, this is it. Can Ben Renato finish off Seth Manfield while the shields are down? Ben's at 10. He finds another Inventor's Apprentice. He's crewing. He's attacking. Oh, what is Ben tapping for? Does he have another Unlicensed Disintegration? Yes, he does, and that's going to do it. Benjamin Renato on to the semifinals. He knocks out Seth Manfield. Pretty big deal there. All right, well, we've got more action for you lined up, but first, these messages.